Okay, you're on.
Okay, so I'm grateful for this opportunity that I have because I learned so much about oats. It's my new favorite thing to store, I'll tell you. And you'll learn why. I'll start out with telling you that there was an old, rough and tough cowboy that had a grandson. And he told his grandson, if you want to live long and be strong, then you have to put a pinch of gunpowder in your oatmeal every morning. So this grandson, for the rest of his life, put a pinch of gunpowder in his oatmeal. And he lived to be 110 years old. Oh. And he left 20 grandchildren, 30 great-grandchildren, and 10 great-great-grandchildren. And he left a 50-foot hole where the crematorium was. So that was Debbie's joke. Thank you.
You can find a joke on anything on the internet.
Okay, so we have some fun facts about oats to start. The first oatmeal was eaten in Greece, but they also found it in Switzerland and Egypt. The first oats were cultivated like 7,000 years ago. It was a weed, and they found out, oh, we can eat this, we can use this, so then they started cultivating it. It was brought to the United States in 1602, and they grew it on an island off the coast of Massachusetts, and then it kind of moved on to the mainland. And by 1786, George Washington was sowing 580 acres of it. It then moved farther west, and it became very popular to grow oats in the mid-upper Mississippi Valley area. So now it's grown in Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa. In Iowa, between 1950s and about 2000, they were growing approximately 6.5 million acres of oats. And Iowa today still is the center of oat production. But in the 2000s, early 2000s, they started growing soybeans instead, so oats has dropped off. But the United States and Canada still grows more oats than, they grow half the oats for the world. The other countries that grow in big quantities are Russia, Poland, and Finland. So obviously, oats like cold, cool weather. They grow really well. There is a spring oat and a winter oat, and in the U.S., because we're a little farther south, they do grow a winter oat, but they grow more spring oats. Scotland also grows oats, but they eat them all because they eat more per capita than anybody in the world. Now, Samuel Johnson's English Dictionary states that oats are what you feed horses, but the Scottish eat them. And so the Scotsmen came back with the report that, well, that's why England has such good horses and Scotland has such fine men. So, but oats have always been used for livestock. They're grown for pasture grain and hay and bedding materials for animals, but mostly for feed. Humans eat them too, but they weren't as popular because the hull on the outside of the oat is very hard, and it's until modern machinery where they could actually thresh it a lot easier with machines, it didn't become as popular for people to eat it. But now oats are all the rage in the last 100 years. Okay, so January is National Oat Month, and more oatmeal is eaten that month than any time. I didn't know that. Did you know that? I didn't know oatmeal had a month. After cereal, cookies are always the favorite, of course, and the new favorite is yogurt with your oatmeal granolas, and it's so popular that like Starbucks and Jamba Juice and even McDonald's and some of the other things are carrying it for breakfast food. So, and I know my grandkids like that. They want the oatmeal in their granola or their yogurt. Okay, so just for fun, an 18-ounce package of oatmeal is 26,000 rolled oats. Like that's really important to us, right? But it's interesting. Somebody must have counted them, yes. Okay, so there are different types of oats. At the bottom, you'll see the groats. Groats are the whole oat, and they're what we basically feed animals. But we can store them, and you can grind them into flour, just like our wheat and other grains. The next is like a craft, well, they call it steel cut. This is steel cut here. Steel cut is groats that have been cut in 2 or 3 pieces. So they grind it very little. And it's just easier to cook. Much easier to cook. Because as we get to steel cut oats, the ratio is 3 cups of water to 1 cup of oats. Where if you cook groats, it's 4 cups to 1. So the more whole the grain is, it's going to take more water and longer to cook. Then we get into rolled oats, and I have some in here. I'm sorry it's not see-through, but rolled oats are just groats that have been steamed and then they roll them flat, which makes them easier to cook, easier to eat, not quite so chewy, and that's what we use for a lot of our baking. But through the years we've gotten the quick oats, the 1-minute or the 2-minute oats, and then the instant oats. Actually, instant oats are oats that have been cooked, dehydrated, and then put in the package, and that's why you only have to add boiling water, because it's already pre-cooked. It's not quite as nutritious as the others, but it works. Okay, so those are the different types of oats. Okay, I'm going to cheat on my notes for the medical. There's too many long words that I need to remember, so you'll have to excuse me. Okay, according to the FDA, just 1/3 of a cup of oatmeal a day can keep your heart healthy. And these are some of the reasons why. For one thing, oats can help in weight control because they're only 130 calories per cup, I think it is. It stays in your stomach longer, so it gives you a nice full feeling, and it's a complex carbohydrate, so it stays in your body longer while the starches are breaking down into sugar, and then so it prolongs your energy. So it's a good thing to have in your storage on, or even cold days. It has water soluble or soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. It's called beta glucans, and what they do is they prevent heart disease by they inhibit the bad cholesterol. They let the good cholesterol stay and get rid of the bad. That's a good thing. So it also helps reduce high blood pressure. Now, oatmeal also has, it enhances immune response. In other words, when you are ill or you have an infection, the beta glucans again help go to the area, send things to the infected area and fight like the bacteria there. So it's sort of like an antibacterial inside your body, which I didn't know that. I didn't know. Maybe that's why we eat oatmeal when we don't feel good sometimes. It's easy to digest, we think, but it's also doing our bodies good. Okay. Oatmeal helps with thyroid problems. It serves nerves, sorry, and it can also help in cravings, like for cigarettes. It helps calm that down and stave it off. It's also good for type 2 diabetes because it stabilizes your blood sugar, and so, like I said, the glucose, it breaks down the starches and becomes a good glucose and then good insulin for the body. There's high fiber in it, and that's good for us. It is natural. Oh, it naturally has GLA, which is it's an essential fatty acid, and I wouldn't think of fatty acids being in a grain, but there it is, right there. it's gluten-free. Now this kind of made me laugh because when I was at Winco, I went to buy rolled oats in bulk, and it's in a bin at the lower point, you know, one of the big bins. But on top there's two small ones, and one was organic, and the other one said gluten-free. So I asked the man that was like stocking, and I said, "Aren't all oats gluten-free?" Yes.
Yeah, oats are naturally gluten-free,
Yes.
but they're often processed in facilities that process meat.
Yes.
And so that's how they sometimes get contaminated. But most oats are not contaminated.
That's right, and that's why after my research later, I found out that you need to be careful, especially people with celiac, because exactly, sometimes where the oats are processed, they also do other grains, and it can get cross-contamination.
Excuse us.
Oh, I don't have to yell. Can you hear me in the back?
Tell them how much the gluten-free ones cost compared to regular.
Oh, yeah. Okay, gluten-free. Gluten-free. Oh, also, not only in the processing plant, but sometimes farmers grow oats, but their neighbor grows wheat. Or sometimes same farmer grows 2 or 3 grains on the same property, and that also will cross-contaminate. So to see that it was gluten-free meant that, like, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Yeah, that's funny. She mentioned that it means that it was specifically processed and grown away from other grains. So there you go. But it was $1.78 a pound. The one next to it was organic, and the organic was it 99 cents? 99 cents. But the good old rolled oats, which they're not GMO, they're not genetically modified, they haven't done that to oats yet. So that's a nice thing to know. Just regular oats was 62 cents a pound. That is really good. And I'll tell you another thing about that later. That's good. Okay, so it also protects against breast cancer. There's there's something in oats that helps prevent breast cancer. Okay, so next slide. Oops. There we go. Storage. So a bushel of oats is 32 pounds. Now comparing it to wheat, like, okay, 32 pounds, see how light that is? I can actually lift it. If this was wheat, I wouldn't be able to do that because I'm a weakling, because wheat weighs about 60 pounds a bushel. Corn weighs about 70 pounds a bushel. So oats is very lightweight. So if you need to carry your food storage around, choose oats. You need to, the average adult needs to store 50 pounds, figuring that you're going to eat a half a cup per day. If you're doing short term, you need to always make sure it's airtight. I read that on everything I read was make sure you store airtight. So airtight bags, airtight containers. For long-term storage, there's the big buckets, and Winco, I got this is Debbie's, and I love it. They have buckets at Winco, but they have this really cool lid. Are you going to show them?
Gamma lids. No, you can.
Oh, it's a gamma lid, yeah. So, you know how they're so hard to get off? Not this one. So you can take any of your buckets and you put the seal on it, and then it has a rubber seal here. So it seals, air fresh, and it's just so easy to get on and off. So this is what Debbie uses for her rotating. So she's got like, what, 8 different things you rotate or
Oh,
something?
I have like 16.
Yeah. So, and they're only $6, the lid. At home, when I'm just, rotating inside, I use containers, plastic containers. If I'm going to go really quick, I just leave it in the container that it came in. But another thing you can do is use Mylar bags. You can store Mylar bags of oats inside the buckets. They suggest doing that because these buckets are not exactly super airtight because plastic freeze. The other thing, they said it would keep out bugs better and maybe rodents. Although I don't believe the part about rodents, they eat through everything. Yes.
What did you say? What? Okay.
All
Mine like
our
those.
bags. I'll let Debbie tell
At
you.
the Bishop Storehouse? That's where I get them. You can get them online too.
I forgot my number 10-pound can, but if you store 10-pound cans, they need to be coated. There are some that are not coated. If it's coated, it should look usually white inside. Mine do. They're kind of like white. Otherwise, if you store your oats outside in a metal can, they can pick up a funky taste, especially if you store them long. And never ever store them on a cement floor. You have to store them up on a shelf or something. If you store them on the cement floor, sometimes they'll absorb moisture or they get a really weird taste to them. Oats, storing. Okay, so BYU did a study and found that oats stored for 28 years, like rolled oats if it was, are still acceptable for eating. And I have to say, we opened a can of oats that I have at home that were in a number 10-pound can, and we opened them up, and they were a little like, oh, I could tell it's been stored for a while, taste. But what we did is we took the same amount of new oats, and we just mixed them half and half and kind of aerated it. And I read that. If you aerate the oats, it helps them. We mixed them together, and then once you put brown sugar or honey or fruit on it, you can't taste it, so it was great. Okay, now according to the LDS order form, when you buy it in a 10-pound can, it should last 30 years. And this is something I read. Now some people say, oh, buy the groats, they'll store longer. But what I read about the oats is groats do not store as long as just plain rolled oats. They need to be stored in a dry, cool, dark place. In fact, they said if you want to store groats or steel cut, you should freeze them. So they say if you have a cellar that's nice and dry and clean, that's a good place to store oats. Go ahead.
No,
There's a lot of those around here.
Oh, root cellars? Yeah, right. Actually, in some of the older part of town, like some of the older houses, actually did have root cellars. They didn't know about earthquakes then.
Susie?
Yes. Huh. I know it has the heart because, yes.
Yep. We can't hear you up here.
It's hard to hear.
The question was, does anyone know how to make a root cellar?
Oh,
Different class.
need a backhoe. You know, this package says just ingredients. It says rolled oats. It doesn't say anything about preservatives. Maybe people don't want preservatives in their oats anymore. We're all very conscious about that. So, okay. So, all right. This is one thing I learned, and it goes along with health, is soak your oats. I had no idea you were supposed to soak oats. Now, on one website, I read that on the back of the old oatmeal containers, it used to say that you needed to soak your oats. And I thought, how interesting. Now, the reason you need to soak them, and this is why, I found this in a January 2011 issue of International Journal of Gastroenterology. How's that? It was written by a Dr. Isabel Comono, and she's from Spain, and she was doing a study on celiac disease and what kind of grains that they could eat. And she found that a lot of grains have phytic acid, and it's an organic acid which is phosphorus bound. And so what happens is when you eat it without soaking it, this acid, I guess, it bonds with things like your calcium, magnesium, zinc, copper, and your iron, and then it doesn't digest. So you become mineral deficient in a lot of things, including some of the B vitamins. So she says, and a lot of people with that start out with high fiber diets thinking that that's a good thing, you know. It's good at first, but eventually it causes problems. And here's some of the things it can cause. Let's see. It causes gastrointestinal distress, constipation, gas, stomach cramps, nausea, and all kinds of irritating things within the digestive system. And so this is interesting because we've gone from soaking our oats to instant, although these have been cooked, but I'm wondering if they're better for us. I couldn't find any information on that. Now, it was suggested that to soak your oats from 7 hours to overnight. That's a long time. You have to think about when you're going to eat your oatmeal if you do this. So, but then I read another thing, it said 2 hours is fine. But even that, if you're worried about it in the morning, I don't know, how many of you are going to soak your oats? Yes. Yeah, any of the oats. It says any of the oats. Except for the instant. I don't think that would be good. Not only does it, it helps the nutritional value of the oats itself and becomes more easily digestible. So, in the crock pot, at the top in here, I soak the oats, and there's a little recipe that I found on the Canadian Preppers website, and the lady that put the recipe up, she was talking about how she cooks in her crock pot, and she even does oatmeal or still cut oats in her crock pot. So I thought, well, I'll try it. And she says you have to soak them, just like the other article I read. She said to just put in the crock pot overnight with a cup to 4 cups of water and a teaspoon of lemon juice and a teaspoon of flour. Now, the other websites didn't say anything about the flour, but she said that it helps start the fermentation. In other words, you kind of want the grain to start sprouting is the gist that I got from this. And then she said if you have a timer on your crock pot, you can set it so it goes on like 3 in the morning, then at 7 it's all done for you, which is cool. Yes? Well, according to this recipe in the crock pot, you just go ahead and just cook them in the same water. But before I started, they suggest that you rinse it a lot. So in a colander, I used the net type colander, not the ones with the holes, because it was, you know, cracked. The steel cut is like cracked wheat, so I thought it would go right through the holes of the regular colander. But I tried to rinse it for about 1 minute. If you do not rinse it, when you put in the water, it kind of bubbles up and the water gets very milky looking. But then when you put the lemon juice in the flour, it gets milky looking too. So anyway, I have that in mind. If you want to eat healthier, soak your oats, especially if you're eating the steel cut, it would probably cook up easier and be easier to digest. Okay, so toasting your oats. You can toast your oats. Now, we have some cookies tonight from a recipe where the oats were toasted. When you're toasting oats, it gives it a kind of a nice flavor, a little different flavor. You can put about 6 cups onto a large cookie sheet at a time, 375 for about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on your oven, but you have to go in, you have to stir each time, because if you notice in the picture, it gets brown around the edges. I don't know if you can see that, but they start burning around the edges. So you have to go in and just keep stirring them. And it's good to stir them every 5 minutes, because sometimes they'll be done sooner than you think. They don't have to be extremely brown to be toasted. It's like, use your nose. You know how you know a cookie's done? When you start smelling the oats, you're like, ooh. Okay, maybe they're done, because I don't want to burn them. Now, I tried it in a skillet on the stove. But you have to do it at a low temperature, otherwise they scorch, and you have to constantly stir. But you can do a small amount on the top of the stove. Now, toasted oats or regular oats, you can make into oat flour. Oops. All you need is a blender. And I only do about a cup at a time.
Susie, can you move the big thing?
Oh, the big thing. Move the big thing.
Thank you.
Oops. Okay. So just do a cup at a time. And I usually start it on a lower speed and work it up to a higher speed. Okay, it's not working.
Oh.
Because it's not working. So you can keep going for quite a while until it gets very fine and powdery. And it's so powdery that it will stick in the bottom. So you have to, work to get it out. But you can use oat flour. You can use 1/3 oat flour into any recipe instead of to replace other flour. In other words, if you're cooking something and you run out of flour, just make some oat flour real quick and, put it in the recipe. It works really well.
Back to
The soaking?
Can you soak a batch and then refrigerate it, freeze it?
You know what, that's something I didn't read, although one article said, soak it and whether you eat it then or not. So, but it didn't say how long you can keep it in the fridge. Do you know? 2 days. Sort of like pancake batter then.
So like, take the amount that you use for your food and then stick it back close. So that minute so that
Can everybody hear her? She said to put it, yeah, don't keep them in the fridge for more than 2 days. It's sort of like you would pancake batter or anything. Okay. Yes. I'm just having a hard time.
She said you take it out of the crock pot and cook it, or you just cook it in the
No, I cook it right in the crock pot. It just takes longer. Actually, you know what? I still cut oats in my rice cooker, and it works really well. And it doesn't take any longer than rice. Well, I just wanted to try the crock pot way because of the soaking idea, but yeah, just, it takes, well, she said on low it could take up to 6 hours. But she said it should cook, if you have a crock pot that has a really high setting, it would cook in about 1.5 hours after soaking. So you have to soak it about 8 hours, she said. So, okay. So there's the, oh, do we have a camera?
Yeah. Look it, you're up on the big screen.
You're on the big screen.
There I am. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you can, it feels a little gritty, but if I kept grinding, it would be really fine flour. Oats.
That flour is also good in smoothies.
I was going to say, oatmeal can be used as a drink. I found it, well, I have a couple, yes, I have more than a couple of books on how to eat raw. I've been trying to do better health-wise. But one of them is you soak your oats in, liquid overnight, and then in the morning, in the fridge, and then in the morning you just put it in a blender and blend it up and drink it. I said it's really super nutritious. You can add some fruit to it, add a banana, whatever, and it's thick and it tastes like a shake. I'm like, I haven't tried it yet. I should have. But you can add them to any drink to thicken it up. If you want any type of drink to be thick, just add some oats or some oat flour. Yes. Oh yeah. Did you on this side hear her? She's saying you can use the oat flour to dust pans and other things when you're baking. Very good. Thank you. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Replace 1/3, up to 1/3 of the recipe. We can replace
For breading, when you do breading.
breading. Oh,
But
breading.
instead of flour.
Okay. That's right. That's what I was getting to. The next thing you can use oats for is cosmetics. You can make face scrubs. You can soak in the bathtub in it. You can it's found in soaps, shampoos, and you can use it as a pulse for dry skin. You can just soak some oats in warm water, put it in cheesecloth, and put it on the affected area for about 15 minutes, and it'll help the dry skin. So if you have something that's bothering you, or an itchy spot or something like that, it is very, very soothing to the skin. Oops. Nope, you don't want to do that. Okay.
So now, you want me to do it?
Not yet.
Okay.
Right, I didn't heat this up. And, is it on? Is it on? I don't know how hot this is. Do you know?
Just turn it up all the way.
Let's burn it. We're going to try something here. Oops. We have two different recipes. So, for a topping on apple crisp, while the pan's heating up, I'm just going to go over a really quick recipe. It'll be in your hand. Well, the handout won't be a handout. It'll be
A mail out.
a mail out. Yes. But you need to. It's a very easy recipe to remember because it's a 1/2 cup of flour and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of oats. And a 1/2 cup of nuts. And a 1/2 cup of melted butter.
Salute.
Did we turn the lights off?
Yeah, we can see better.
Oh.
You can't, but we can.
Okay. So when you add the butter, you have this crumbly mixture that you can put on like apple crisp, or you can add it to the topping of ice cream, the top of a cake, if you're making a oatmeal cake, put it on the top of an oatmeal cake or any type of thing. You can use it for upside down cakes. So many things. It's really easy, and it's just half.
Whoops. What happened to you?
Whoops.
She lost her voice.
You lost
I
it.
lost my voice. I don't know, did the battery die?
Toonie,
Oops.
he's coming.
Anyway,
Go back to talking really loud.
all right, so I'm talking really loud now. So it's a very, very easy recipe, and it's one that you won't forget because it's just a half a cup of each of the 5 items. The flour, the brown sugar, the oatmeal, the chopped nuts, and the half a cup of butter.
Better.
That's sure it's
Okay. Oops. We're going to eat some, we're going to, at the tasting table, we're going to have some pancakes tonight. They're oatmeal pancakes. And this butter's supposed to be melted. Can I have some of that?
Are you making a batch of it?
Yes.
Okay.
So we start out with a half a cup of flour. And a half a cup of oatmeal. All these half cups. Then we have like a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of baking powder, and a half a teaspoon of soda. And I would really like to know why they do that. Why, I don't understand the chemical compounds, why we're using soda, baking soda. I heard that baking powder is flour with baking soda in it. It's not as strong. Is that true? Does anybody know? Good. Baking soda.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's why we use baking soda.
Okay.
Sometimes I can't hear what you're saying. Oh, okay.
Some people think aluminum's not good for you. The Alzheimer's people say no, it doesn't cause Alzheimer's. But if you're worried about aluminum, get aluminum free baking powder, which you can usually get at a health food store. I don't know, you could use just baking soda, you're gonna have to adjust other ingredients because baking soda and baking powder has different power to them.
Yeah.
Or you have to use additional ingredients, you have to put an acid in.
That's why I thought this recipe was interesting. It was half a teaspoon of each. Because a lot of recipes will just call for one or the other when you're making cookies or pancakes or something like that. Okay, so it calls for 3/4 a cup of milk, and it doesn't matter what kind of milk. I've used all kinds of milk. I've used regular milk, soy milk, almond milk, and this is coconut milk. So it just needs to be liquid. Now I was watching Food Channel one time and they said you can even use any kind of juice you want. In fact, I have used the juice out of canned pears before to make pancakes. It tastes really good, it's sweet. And 2 eggs, and a half a cube of butter, which is 1/4 of a cup, melted. Okay, and mix it all up. And it's a very thick batter. And if you want, you can add a banana, a smashed banana, or a half a cup to a cup of applesauce, and it tastes really sweet. But they mix up just fine without the fruit. But I always like it better with the fruit. And then, okay. It makes a very thick pancake, and it's very, very, very filling.
Do you need a plate to put the pancakes on when they come out?
Good idea. I just figured. Ouch, I didn't think about that part. Oh. I thought we had the raisins. They could be really plain, but I like the raisins better. I do creative and use blueberries or cherries and cranberries and things like that. So,
What's the difference between an oatmeal cookie and an oatmeal pancake?
the sugar. We don't put the sugar in the pancake because you're gonna put a lot of syrup on it, right? Most kids do. So actually, you can put a little bit of sugar in the pancake if you want it. If you'd rather have it that way. I figure they don't need it. All right. So these are going to be strange-looking pancakes. They're not round. They look like footballs or something.
I had a question on.
I don't know how they'll cook because I've never used this platter before. Yes.
I had a question on the ingredients. You said put a half a cup of flour, then you said put the oatmeal. Is the flour oat flour or regular flour?
It was, no, that was regular flour. Actually, I used spelt flour because I have a problem with it. No, so yeah. Now the cookies you're going to taste tonight were, I found them on the Food Network, and they were by Alton Brown. And they were called Oat-rageous Oatmeal Cookie Ever. And what it called for is toasting the oats, and then taking half the oats and making it into flour. And so you cream the butters and the sugars and add the eggs, then the oat flour, and then add in the whole oats, and some oatmeal, or some raisins. And they're really good. I had a hard time not eating more. I made them small, and I ate 3, and I thought, I really want to eat some more. Well, I thought I would leave some for you. So I decided no. All right, so I'm just going to review while this cooks. You can come up and see. Unfortunately, the crock pot steel oats did not cook because it needs more time. I never know how much time it needs. And because I rinsed them so much, there might have been too much water and it's sticking around.
I'm going back so you can see your thing.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so in the review, oats are really quick and convenient, and they fill us up really well. They're really inexpensive compared to, oh, and this is one of the greatest things. One of the best things I found out about oats is it has more protein than wheat or rice. In fact, it's comparable to, oops, I think I'll go back one. Oops, go back. It's comparable to meat, eggs, and milk. And my grandmother, there's a meatloaf at the bottom there. It's really good for leftovers because a lot of recipes have you sort of make the oatmeal before you put things together. So you might as well use leftover oatmeal. There's many, many recipes online using leftover oatmeal.
You're going to be getting leftover oatmeal recipes too.
Yeah. My grandmother, I still use her oatmeal or her meatloaf recipe, and it calls for a pound of beef, ground beef, half a cup of oatmeal, and 1 egg. And so I've always done that with the spices, of course. But I didn't know meatloaf was made any other way. Doesn't all meatloaf have oatmeal? Some people, I found out, make it with breadcrumbs. And
Cracker crumbs.
The what kind?
Crackers.
Oh, cracker
Crushed
crumbs.
crackers.
Oh, yeah.
Corn
But,
flakes is good too.
Flakes. But I've always used the oatmeal, and I get more protein. Yay. Yeah, Debbie made a really yummy cake. Are they tasting it tonight?
They
Yes, yes. That's like you can make that with leftover oatmeal. Okay. Okay, so they're inexpensive, only 62 cents a pound for rolled oats. They're easy to store, just make sure they're airtight. They're a good meat extender, of course. And you can grind them into flour and substitute flour in any recipe. And of course they double as animal feed. Now, I looked up oats for cats and dogs because I thought a lot of us have pets. In case of emergency, would they be able to eat oats? So you can extend their food with oat powder, flour. You can extend their food. You can get them to eat cooked oats. Maybe put some like bouillon in it so it tastes good. Really? Especially if it has sugar in it. Cats love sugar. Did you know that? And cats love butter. They like butter. Yeah. So it's a good thing to have if you have animals and you need to feed them too.
Well done.
Yeah. So
So eat oats.
so eat oats, yeah.